Hi everyone. So today we're going to go over how to kind of evaluate your mistakes after you do a CARS passage. I'm really like passionate about this topic because I think it makes such a huge difference when you're preparing for CARS. But it's a step that a lot of people kind of neglect. And so I'll walk you through how you can do it, both in kind of the standard way and also the simplified version of it. So hopefully wherever my head is floating around in that Zoom stuff, I'm hoping it's not obstructing any view of this. So, really, what's kind of like the main stuff you want to keep track of are some of the columns here. So, this is just a sample of what you can structure, kind of like your sheet like. This was passed down to me, and I think it's based off of an MCAT row sheet. So, in terms of some basic things you want to keep note of is where did you get your question materials from? I had some students who actually would, if they use something like a Jack Weston or Khan Academy passage, they'd also like insert the link of the passage that they did. And this is really helpful because you can always go back to those passages and keep track of it. Um, you definitely want to go over the questions that you got wrong, but also the questions that you flagged, because if you flagged it, you want to figure out if you got it right because you got lucky or if it was because you actually reason through the question correctly. And so content category is the type of question. If they provide it to you, the whoever is making these questions, and you can write it down and you can kind of look through and see some patterns in your reasoning and your mistakes. But if they don't provide it, that's perfectly fine. You can omit that column. Thought process is how you got the answer. Explanation is how the test maker got the answer. And these are often where students are like, okay, I write these down, but I'm not really sure what to do with this information. If you compare these two columns, you're going to figure out why you got something right or wrong. And so you want to make categories of mistakes for yourself. So things like getting stuck on 50-50, not sure how to find the main idea. I mean, these are all just very general categories that I usually see with students. Um, and so the reason why you want to keep track of these categories is so that as you progress day by day, week by week, you can see if you're repeating the same mistakes over and over again, or if some of these mistakes kind of start to decrease and go down. This is really helpful because I always use this analogy of basketball. Um, the player's got a really bad game. The coaching staff is going to look at their film and say, hey, this is why you had a bad game. You gave up free throws, you had bad defense, maybe you didn't shoot enough threes or whatever it is. So, figuring out the reasons that you got your mistakes um, will help you find ways to address them. And so, the ways to kind of address it is to figure out some steps to fix that. So, if you're stuck on 50-50, I have a video on that. So you want to practice those steps before you practice for the next day. Um, if you're not sure how to find the main idea or getting lost in the passage, I've also got some videos that I'll be making about how to sort of read the passage actively and how to do that with the passage. And so you want to keep track of really why you got something right or wrong and the steps you can use to fix it. So the right or wrong stuff, you can look at it over time to see if there's any trends that happen. So mistakes that come up, mistakes that go down, maybe some mistakes that start to come up when you're in time practice versus untimed. And the steps are what you should be reviewing basically before you start your CARS practice. So if you do practice on Monday and you make some mistakes, you figure out, hey, these are the steps or strategies that I'm going to try out. Then before you start your prep on Tuesday, you should review what were the errors I made and how am I going to try to fix that today. Then you can see if the steps that you're using actually helps decrease some of these problems or if it doesn't change anything. And if it doesn't change anything and you have the same mistakes again, you have to try out a new strategy. So really steps in this case equal strategies. And I call them steps because ideally what you want to treat this as is if you have a problem, you have some instructions that you can follow to try to fix that problem. And the repetition of those steps will basically turn it into a strategy. So an approach that you take for every passage. Now, if you're thinking, okay, this is going to take me way too long to write down, I want to simplify, I have other things to study for, it's perfectly fair. You can omit these two columns and just focus on this stuff, and noting down some of that basic information. I would maybe even omit this if they don't provide it to you. So I have some students who really quickly drop this down. We'll just get a sheet of paper. You got like your little holes in the paper, and they'll split it up into a cheat chart. So the reason why you got it right or wrong, and then the steps that you're going to fix it. And so this nice T-chart will help you keep track of what are some of the repeated mistakes that some students I have will color code it, as well as what steps you like that you want to keep and kind of try out a little bit more. You can also kind of have a little summary section, that can also be used for the same purpose of saying, hey, for tomorrow, this is all the stuff that I'm going to try out. You can write reminders for yourself and that kind of stuff. So evaluation is extremely important. One thing I will say is that if you practice on, let's say, Monday, and you do 3 passages and you don't have a chance to review it on Monday, please don't do more passages until you finish reviewing the ones that you already did. The reason being is that it's just going to add up. You're never going to review those old ones, and you're never going to figure out where the errors you're making. Without knowing the types of mistakes that you're making, you're kind of going in blind. And so I'll probably make more videos about these types of mistakes and how to spot them, because that's probably the hardest thing for students, but this is a good starting point for what you can use to evaluate yourself, both a longer format if you like it in this way, or a shorter format, either on a sheet of paper, maybe a table on Word, or on Google Docs, or just a spreadsheet. So I hope this video was really helpful. If you have any suggestions, please feel free to drop them in the comments about like what you want to see next. The best way you can support this video is by maybe commenting, subscribing, giving it a like, or sharing it with a friend. If you're able to, I appreciate some kind of donation, just because it helps me support myself and keep these videos going. But I know finances is tough for students, so the best way you can share it is sharing it with someone else who's maybe going through cars prep and needs some help. I really wanted this to reach as many people as possible, so I'd kind of appreciate it if you could go ahead and share it. So thanks so much for sharing your time with me today, and I hope you have a great time prepping for cars.